It's Friday, September 19th, 2014. I'm Jimmy Principe.
I'm Sydney Foster.
And I'm Trey Comstock. Put in your final orders because this is Tech's Last Call, episode 89, your last call for tech news of the week. Tonight, Jimmy builds America's next rocket in Microsoft's newest product. Sydney reads a lot about a lot of e-readers, and I observe the rights of the year on my piss-poor rural internet. But we start tonight with one of Tech's high holy days. Like the medieval Catholic Church, the tech world celebrates a certain number of feast days every year. Press Day of CES, Press Day of E3, Keynote Day of Google I/O, Apple Announcement Day, and of course, iPhone Launch Day. I honored the feast in my usual way, standing in lines with thousands of other pilgrims from around the world, participating in the rites to St. Steve, St. Tim, and St. Johnny. In other words, I stood in a line for 12 hours in order for the privilege of dropping $500 on a locked smartphone. The iPhone 6 and 6 Plus are in the wild. Journalists around the world, and I concur, seem to agree that the lines were much bigger at least than the previous two launches. It actually took me as long as it took me to get the 4, so Apple hasn't lost its magic. The reviews of the phone have been positive for the most part. The Plus has amazing battery life, maybe even more than a day. The optical image stabilization matters, but it may actually be too big for some people.
Surprise.
The iPhone 6 is a great phone, but may not constitute enough of a departure from the previous models for some people's tastes. The screen just isn't big enough. There's a bit of a Goldilocks thing going on here. The benchmarks show that the phones are close to, if not the top performing smartphones out there. My own perspective on the 6 Plus, which is the device I bought, is that I'm definitely going to enjoy the bigger screen. But the design looks too much like the Galaxy Note, particularly the Note 2. Also, the size makes it feel not quite at home in my famously small hands. iOS 8.
Hands man.
Yep, I'm a baby hands man. iOS 8 is out there as well. Now, for both new and old phones, I think it goes all the way down to the 4S. Don't quote me on that.
I finally upgraded myself right before the show.
Right. And there are a lot of real improvements that won't really make sense until OS 10 Yosemite comes out, because that's where like the, someone calls you and it pops up on your Mac stuff comes into play. Also, Apple Pay isn't out yet, so both those features.
I've gotten multiple emails from our bank about Apple Pay is coming. Get excited, Apple Pay. So
they stand to make some money that way. There are some features in there that I think are really matter. A lot of tech journalists, I'm not really one of them, have been raving about the ability to install other keyboards, like SwiftKey specifically.
Try SwiftKey, man.
I know.
Been using it on the Android for a while. It's quite good.
There's a in-house version of SwiftKey too many operating systems. Windows Phone 8.1, and I don't use it because you swipe up, and then you have to stop, hit the space key, swipe, hit the space key. It just doesn't...
SwiftKey is not swipe.
Well, no, it's like...
It's built-in swipe. You can use swipe if you want to.
Right.
That's swipe.
Right.
Where you draw the line thing.
Right. Yeah, that's not...
No, you can also just use it as a keyboard.
Right, well then, what's the difference?
Auto prediction.
Right, but Apple's always had auto prediction, and they've improved their auto prediction with this one. That's actually been pretty decent. Also, family sharing, which we just started playing with. You'll probably hear more about it on T4. So now like me with my ridiculous iTunes account can share it with my family. So they have access to my apps, my videos, my TV shows, my music. There's also shared calendar, shared tasks. It integrates with Find My Friends. It's kind of this whole suite of family management stuff that actually could be pretty cool. Also, Hey Siri, which doesn't really work the way you want it to, because the phone has to be plugged in for it to work.
Wait, what?
Hey Siri. Siri works when it's not plugged in, but it'll just say Hey Siri and for it to pop up. That only happens if the phone's plugged in.
Here, see, watch this. Okay, Google.
Right.
It's not plugged in. There's no
I
line.
could yell Okay Siri till I'm blue in the face. Wouldn't matter.
That's not stop.
'Cause
Okay,
the phone's not plugged
I've
in.
created a monster.
So, before we kind of move into me showing the phone, what about this feast day stands out to y'all?
Sydney, I'm gonna let you go first.
Well, I'm excited about I'm gonna go in the opposite direction from the phones because we all know that me and phones is just not a love story. But the family sharing thing
Relationship.
is pretty cool on iOS 8. Like, I'm thinking, like, for us especially, you know, we are in lots of different places throughout our week, and the ability to have a calendar that we share is quite exciting. Also, for me, especially the tasks and notifications, because our running errands is a very divided task in our household. So to be able to have like a universal grocery list or something that we can all add to is, by all I mean the two of us, because the cats don't tend to help with the errands, but that we can add to, I think that's pretty nifty. So I'm pretty excited to start playing with that. I'm not surprised that the lines were long this year,
my
just
God.
because with the iPhone 6 Plus, it's the biggest departure we've had recently, I guess. There was the 5C, but that didn't quite take off the way that it was hoped that it would. But I feel like, again, with the 6 Plus, it's the biggest departure we've seen from Apple lately, and that clearly, I would think that was a pretty big motivating factor in the ridiculous's of the lines,
Well, and in Atlanta, it truly was ridiculous. So I got there at 4 a.m., and we were lined up across the street. We weren't allowed onto mall property until 6 o'clock. And I tweeted out on my personal Twitter account, a riot nearly broke out over iPhones. So what happens was the mall turned on the parking lot lights at 5 a.m., and everyone took that as the starter's gun, and instead of orderly proceeding to the mall entrance, everyone ran pell-mell towards the mall entrance, totally jumbling up the line, right? Some people have been there since midnight, can't run. This is America. I did run, because unlike James May, I only run on television. I did. I jogged, and I jogged, and so I improved my place in line. And then the mall security, because I didn't know what the rules were, mall security then kicked us all out. And so the line got totally screwed up. And so there ended up a whole group of people who refused to go off mall property because they'd been there since midnight and were about to lose their place in line, shouting, yelling, and then people who were smart and didn't run, or the minute mall security said, hey, you need to leave, very calmly left and ended up in a better place in line, were shouting back. 6 to 8 cop cars showed up to help quell the iPhone riots. At one point, I saw an officer getting out of his car with his hand on his firearm. And so this kind of went on for probably 45 minutes until a compromise was reached and 2 separate lines were formed. And I think I ended up getting screwed because there are people who had arrived an hour and a half after I did who got phones before I did. But that's whatever. I don't really care.
You did get the phone.
I did get that. That's like I said. I wasn't really into this riot thing. I was mostly into tweeting about this riot thing.
So I called Trey when I was driving in to work this morning, and I'm just sitting here, and I asked him, these people do know that this phone doesn't guarantee financial stability for your family forever, or
Quite
give
the
you
opposite, it would appear,
eternal
actually.
life. The extent to which people are going crazy over these phones is pretty ridiculous. And the other thing that struck me is it's first of all, the people who are standing in line and rioting and running people over to get a $500 phone are the same people who are probably mocking all the people who do that at Walmart on Black Friday. So I feel like this is retribution.
Okay, so my tweet The only tweet of this I'm proud of is I wrote, police, period, shouting, period. Is it a meaningful protest? Question mark. No, it's the iPhone launch in Atlanta.
And we will retweet all of Trey's tweets on the Text Last Call
Yeah, I've got some pictures
Twitter so
from
that
the
everyone
of
can
the cop
see
cars.
the timeline of events from this morning.
Yeah. So it was definitely. I mean, I've never, and it took. So the iPhone, the registration servers crashed at a really terrible time, and so what should have been a 3-hour process turned into what should have been a total of about 4 hours for me turned into a total of about 12 hours for me.
Yeah, it was ridiculous.
Because it was kind of a perfect storm, so the registration service crashed. So it used to be that Apple would just give you a little... Jimmy, you remember this, right?
Yeah,
You
yeah.
get a
'cause I
little
did this with the
card.
iPad.
You get this little card that represents an piece of inventory, and that's how you got your thing. And they just came down the row, hand you a card, and then that worked.
They're basically like, which one do you want?
Which one do you want? Right. So they came up with a really fancy internet-based version of the same thing where they email you your card. That
Oh, screw
crashed
that.
at 8:30. Right away. Internationally, it crashed. And so what that meant is they didn't have the cards.
They went back to they didn't have the old cards.
They didn't have the old cards. So they went back to the really old thing that they used to do for the iPhone 4 is they only let you in batches.
I feel like this goes
Oh, I
back
remember hearing
in
about that.
in kind of a not exactly direct way, but to the conversation you guys had on T4 about printers.
Printers.
I thought we solved this, people.
Sometimes high tech is not the best choice.
Right, and so it ended up and then the servers didn't come back up until after 10 o'clock, and so they weren't really moving that many people through, and then the store opened. And so all the specialists that they had reserved, sorry, I'm using Apple parlance, the blue shirts, that they had reserved to do iPhone thing, had to go back to their normal jobs of being geniuses
shirts
or
blue?
selling other products or whatever. And so there was only a certain number of people who could even handle the iPhone orders. So it was just a total zoo. It was really awful. And the line just wasn't moving. There are probably the mall closed 2 hours ago, but there are probably still people there.
Waiting for tomorrow.
Waiting for tomorrow. And this was one of those ones
Well, that's the way
where there was a
opening weekend
line
goes.
for pre-orders people who had pre-orders, and then a line for people who didn't have pre-orders, and they were doing 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. And so the guy who got the pre-order right after me had been in line for 2 hours. I had been in line for 12 hours. Yeah, which is better than what they were doing with the iPhone 4, because the iPhone 4, it was 7 pre-orders, 1 non-pre-order, 7 it was much more imbalanced. They've at least figured that part out. So Jimmy, what's your take, and then we'll actually show the phone.
Well, so I'm just going to kind of point out the Goldilocks thing of the 4.7 versus the 5.5.
And that's actually Molly Wood's analysis from New York Times.
So one of the comments I've seen is that the 4 points, and I'm going to test this once the insanity dies down, or I find someone that has a sick.
Mid next week.
I'm going to compare. So the Nexus 5 has a 4.95 inch screen, and it has a very small bezel. And so what I'd like to do is do a face-to-face 6
Face-off.
Nexus 5 and see how they compare size-wise. And see how much, because one of the comments I've seen is that there are other phones that manage to fit a 5-inch screen into the same body size as the
as the 4.7.
As the
I can believe
4.7.
because there's a little bit of a bezel to it. I mean, it's maintained about the same bezel width on the sides as the 5 has.
I mean, I don't have the text at my fingertips that I sent you while you were waiting in line, but it was something along the lines of. Let me see if I can pull this guy up.
I can't. It's actually I no longer have access to that. That got wiped.
Oh yeah, because it was.
It was. I mean, I backed up last night, so any text I got since last night, I don't have anymore.
I just kept saying "damn."
Yeah.
And then I said, I guess we have to report that Apple has still got it, the ability to make people lose their freaking minds.
Oh no, and people absolutely had lost their minds. The shouting and near rioting was unlike anything I'd seen at an Apple launch. This is one of the reasons why I am the one of us who observes the ritual, because someone needs to. It's like someone needed to play Dark Souls 2.
Oh God.
It's the same thing. Okay, so let's
my comment about the Goldilocks. I'm just going to point out that for $500, you could have had a Moto X unlocked 5.2-inch screen with a very thin bezel and premium materials. Just saying, throwing that out there.
And you're not wrong about that. And if I lived in the Android universe,
Now,
I
granted,
think
it's only 16 gigs, so it's not an apples for apples
Right.
comparison.
right,
But
mine's 64. But I mean it's also presumably expandable since it's Android. You're not wrong.
There are other choices
And
too.
whereas I think Apple kind of earns its price premium in the laptop space because they really do last forever. The phones, it is more of just what they can get away with, rather than
To be fair, Samsung does the same thing.
right. And what you're citing is there are two phone makers or phone purveyors that are trying to mix that up. That's Motorola, a former Google company, and Google, an actual Google company. So, yes, that is absolutely true. Now, Motorola is not the most valuable company in the world, and Apple often competes for most valuable company in the world. So, they're getting away with it, clearly. Right?
Oh yeah, people are throwing money down for these things.
I've spent more on an iPhone this year than I ever have.
But I will say that the where they get you is Apple carries a real warranty that's worth it. I'm guessing that's part of your $500.
Nope, it's not. I never do Apple Care on a phone. I don't know why, but I don't. I do on the laptop.
And for the 64
So
Plus is $400.
$400. So it's actually $440 when you walk out with tax. Then I needed to buy a new wallet because I was using a book.
Yeah.
So I've kind of included that in the cost of the phone because I needed.
You didn't buy a case for it. Which
And I didn't buy a
other
case.
people will buy a case for it.
And now those are like $40-$50.
So I mean, realistically, you're getting out of there for about $500.
That's
Now, I'm not going to say you would get out of there for $550 for the Moto X because you'd buy a case for it.
Right. But again, you're locked into a 2-year contract. Look, the value proposition isn't there. I get it. I absolutely get that argument.
Well, this phone was $350 off contract a year ago. So it's just an interesting.
Right. But it is interesting. Google, I think, is eating some of that cost. Let's remember.
I think that's true.
But so this gets to something. So Tim Cook, this is not actually in the show notes, but Tim Cook was on 60 Minutes this week, striking back against kind of the accusations of insecurity in iCloud. And one of the things he harped on is, for Apple, you are not the product. For Google, you are the product.
That's true.
And so Google, when they sell you a Nexus 5, they are the ones subsidizing that phone rather than you. I am subsidizing my iPhone 6. You subsidize. Google, through selling you, subsidizes the Nexus 5. So what Apple gets away with charging what they do for their devices, at least according to their own rhetoric, is they don't sell your personal information. All Google does is sell your personal information.
Okay, that's true. Personal information, yes. However, I will also say that Apple's iPhones and things are part of their model of selling apps, and they're 30% in the App Store, iTunes.
Yeah. That's absolutely true. I mean, so they're making money on all of the ecosystem, but you are not the product. You are buying a product from Apple. With Google and Facebook.
Well, but that's why Android is free, because you are
Android
the
is free.
product.
And that's
Google
why
develops Android for free because they get so much data from it.
And that's why I think they have worked to subsidize the price of the Nexus. Because the equivalent,
in the sense that they
because
use the Nexus to advertise Android.
No. What was because it's basically a G1, right?
It's a G2.
No, it's a G1. The G2 just came out.
That was the G3.
Okay, yeah, so it's a G2. So the G2 was not $350 unlocked. It was Apple Samsung price.
Not quite. It was $600 unlocked. There were a couple of differences.
Right. Okay, so but it's in that normal price range. For not that many differences, it's now $350. Google is literally taking a loss on that phone. or not making a profit on that phone at that
No,
price.
they're not making they're not Amazon losing money, but they're not.
But they're not. And why they can do that is because they're going to make that money back in the information they get from you. You, the product. So yeah, you can talk all day long that the Nexus 5 and the Moto X are what they are. Yeah.
Well, the Moto X, I would say, is different.
Well, no, they came up with this pricing category when they were a Google company, and now they don't want to go back on it. Because it happened with the original Moto X when they were still in-house.
Well, the $500 is not totally outside the realm for...
Sure. And it's not all
it's
around...
in the right area for what it is.
And it's by no means the best performer in its category. There's some sacrifices you make.
Right.
So the Moto X, the second generation Moto X may be a slightly more valid argument, but not the Nexus 5. Because that is pure Google. And Google's getting that money back from you in the same way that AT&T is getting that money back from you, the same way that Facebook's getting that money back from you. But it does create that, as Tim Cook points out, and I think this is where he can hit back on his competitors, is that, why am I doing, I'm doing a John Stewart Penn thing today, is that we are what Google's selling. It's why they got in trouble in Europe. I think it was Ireland or Germany because they weren't answering their customer service emails.
Germany.
Because, of course, they're not going to answer your customer service emails. You're not the customer. The companies who they provide advertising for are the customers. You are what they're selling. So let's actually look at the phone. So this is not an iPhone 6. This is an iPhone 5. This will make a lot more sense in the video version. So for those of you who are listening to the audio, I'm holding my iPhone 5 up. And this is an iPhone 6 Plus. Jimmy, how would you describe this size comparison for the audio listeners?
Comical.
It looks like a father and his elementary-aged son. Yeah? Think that's reasonable in terms of size differential? Yeah. So here's the really funny thing. Okay, so here's my hand. Here's the iPhone 6 Plus. Doesn't look that weird until I grasp it in my little baby hand. And then it becomes clear that this envelops... this is bigger than my hand. And then the other comical shot is this. I'm going to take a headphone off for a second. Holding it up to my ear. This looks kind of downright silly.
The only thing I've seen more ridiculous is when Trey held a Lumia, was it the 1520 up to your ear, which is 6 inches. It's just like it's like holding. Yeah. I have nothing that is the same size as that on my desk.
So it is a
it's like
big
holding a paperback book up to your face.
It's like holding a paperback book up to your face. It is, or an original Kindle. That I think it's
actually
not the same size as my
that
Kindle.
is it.
It's not the same size as my Kindle. It is a big phone.
Yeah, like I was playing around with it, and as long as I was holding it in two hands, as I might if I was, consuming content on it or whatever, I was good. But when I wanted to go and hold it with one hand, as one might to, make a phone call or take a selfie, it was not super comfortable. Like, I don't think I'd be able to make extended phone calls on it without my hand cramping up. And it's also really slippery. Like, I was honestly afraid I was going to drop the thing.
Now, they do a couple smart things with the screen real estate. So this may or may not come across. It doesn't.
Nope.
So they create a 2-panel view in email and Messenger, like you would get on an iPad or a laptop. So you have the messages and then the view pane. And that's really useful. And then you get a full screen wide keyboard. So I didn't write my show notes on this, but I read all of my show prep on this phone, which I would normally do on my iPad mini. And I think while I will probably be annoyed at the size of this phone, when I am consuming content, written or video, on this phone, I will be glad that it's the size it is.
No, that's true.
And so it's a trade-off. Does it look ridiculous? Yeah. No, it really does. It is silly looking. But I think two things is what sold me. One was the battery life. My iPhone 5, although Apple told me there's nothing wrong with it, was just dying every day. Every day. This can make it through more than a day. So there's that. And the other thing is, maybe this will mean I won't have to carry this weird situation where in my bag every Friday when I depart for my country home, the parsonage, I'm taking a Surface Pro 3, which is a tablet, an iPad Mini, which is a tablet, and 2 smartphones, all in one bag. And what this means is I probably won't have to travel with the iPad Mini. I love my iPad Mini. It's very useful. It's a wonderful device. One of our top 5 devices of last year, and well-deserved.
Mini with Retina.
With Retina and the 64-bit processor. It's a phenomenal tablet. I really like using it. I don't even have a reason, but I just like using it, so it ends up getting used. That's how good it is. That I have so many other devices that do everything it does, maybe even better, doesn't matter. It is just a nice device to use.
It's the right size.
It's the right size. What this is big enough for what I would use the iPad Mini for. I'll still use my iPad Mini because I like it, but not because I need it. Nilay Patel, who does Nilay write? I don't remember who Nilay writes.
Verge.
The Verge. Basically said that this could become might become his everyday device, and that he would just use his iPad Air for some typing. And I think that's totally based on my few hours. I slept some of those hours that I had this phone and let it do its iCloud thing because I was in line literally for 12 hours.
From 4 a.m. to 4 p.m.
From 4 a.m. to 4 p.m. It totally ruined my workday.
I got home first.
Yeah, no, which is ridiculous. I left before she did. Both of you worked a full day. I was still in line. I did work in line. I wrote my sermon mostly. But I could really understand that this may become my main reader, just because it's the thing that's going to have with me. I'm going to have with me. It's going to have the charge, and the screen real estate is enough that I won't feel the need to jump to my Surface Pro 3 to read all of my. At work I have to read a ton of very detailed emails. I can now start doing that on this. I wear glasses because I'm both far and nearsighted. And so bigger print matters.
Blind is the word.
I'm blind, and bigger print, like it does for 80-year-old people, also matters for me because I've been wearing bifocals since I was 8. So I love the idea that the bigger print. There's a lot to like about this phone. But Apple always talks about being the uncompromised. This is a fundamentally compromised device. Mm-hmm. You fundamentally compromise an element of your self-respect when you use this phone.
Well, but you're also a headphones phone call person. If you're making a long phone call, generally you are wearing headphones.
Oh yeah.
Well,
so I don't like the arm thing.
Right. For you personally, that doesn't have as much of an effect.
That's true. That particular thing. If I'm on a long call, I'm either in my car and I'm using my car's Bluetooth, or I'm on my headphones. If I'm walking around, or even if I'm just sitting in my studio, I'll be wearing headphones. Just I don't like that arm thing. And I talk on the phone a fair amount.
Well, and that's my biggest thing with phablets is that I don't hold a phone up to my ear except for for the 3 to 5 minute phone calls. I don't. If it's longer than that, I find my headphones and plug them in.
Well,
more recently, I've been using these.
Well, for me,
old school.
I always walk around with headphones in my pocket. There is always a pair of earbuds in my pocket. And so if the phone call is longer than 30 seconds to a minute, I am fumbling and pulling out my headphones.
That's fair.
So for me, I'm not going to be holding this up to my ear a whole lot. And yeah, that looks dumb. It doesn't look totally dumb in my hands. It looks much more dumb against my face. That may be
it
the
looks
show
really
title.
dumb when I tried to put it
looks
in my
much more dumb.
front pocket.
Write that down. That's the show title.
It looks much more dumb against my face. It looks much. Talk amongst yourselves. Rhode Island.
Is it really more dumb?
That's what he said.
Looks dumber.
It would actually be dumber, but
Okay.
I thought it looks much more dumb.
It's Friday. You never know how my
dumb.
grammar is going to be at the end of the day on a Friday.
I'm an engineer. You never know how my grammar is going to be.
Against my face. I know. I copied you.
Yeah, exactly. You're quite aware of my grammar and its
I go back and edit
interestingness.
both of you.
Okay,
But yeah,
so
we'll have more
Before
on the
I post things
iPhone
to
yeah.
Facebook.
Oh,
T4 next week.
T4
That's going to be the
and-
majority of T4.
yeah,
next
that
week.
and hopefully I'll have some more to say about family sharing because I really think that's an interesting aspect.
Yeah, I'm
if they've-
excited about that.
If that actually integrates the way they make it sound like, that's going to end up being a killer app for me, I think. So speaking of you as an engineer, what did Microsoft engineer?
Microsoft engineered a gigantic purchase of a
Oh,
game.
yeah.
How many Instagrams?
2.5.
2.5.
I'm
So-
not even sure it's worth that.
So as we mentioned on T4 earlier this week, Microsoft did purchase Mojang.
Mojang.
Mojang, is that how you pronounce
Mojang.
it?
It's
How about
Scandinavian.
Mohang?
It's Mojang.
Mojang, the developer of Minecraft,
Minecraft.
for $2.5 billion, 2.5 Instagrams. Now, for their money, Microsoft will get the cult hit Minecraft, which has had 50 million downloads
Paid
since its
downloads.
introduction in 2009, as well as the entire studio that developed it, with one notable exception.
Two notable exceptions.
Oh, two notable
Both
exceptions.
of the founders.
Okay, both of the founders, one of which is Notch,
Which is the really famous one.
who's the actual creator
Marcus
of Minecraft.
Pearson.
I was gonna say, does this man have a real name?
Marcus Pearson.
Marcus Pearson, Notch.
Notch.
He will not be joining Microsoft as part of the buyout, and he posted an open letter on his website explaining kind of his reasons behind that. In that letter, he stated that he never really wanted to make a game as large as Minecraft, and that the stress had become too much, and he'd kind of become a symbol, and that the game doesn't really belong to him, but it belongs to the users. And he closed his letter with, quote, "It's not about the money. It's about my sanity."
Not
End
about the
quote.
money. He walked out with $1.8 billion.
Yeah, he did fine.
He owned 80% of the company.
So Trey, do you think that what do you think Microsoft is actually going to do with this game? And moreover, what do you think it means for Microsoft's corporate strategy? Because they also, this is not in the show notes, but they also went with another like 200 or 2,500 layoffs.
Yeah, so that was just part of the announced 18,000. They had only done like 12.5, 13,000 of them already. This was just the next wave of what was already announced. Those are going to be rolling out over the next year. So those aren't new layoffs. Those are just part of the previously announced 18,000. I have no idea.
This makes no sense.
No, it makes sense, but what sense is
How
the question?
does it?
I think. Well, Microsoft has a history of buying game studios that do things on their platforms, right? Let's look at Bungie, right? Halo, when it originally came out, was going to be an RTS for the Macintosh. It was announced by Steve Jobs as this big game for the Macintosh. Microsoft did some financial dealings, and Halo became the cornerstone of the original Xbox, and really the cornerstone of the entire existence of Xbox as an idea is fundamentally built on how it revolutionized the console shooter. Okay, so this isn't
and Gears of War.
And Gears of War
announced earlier this year they're buying from Epic Games for $1 billion.
For $1 billion, and
that
pass it off to
2 million copies sold.
Right.
It just seems weird, like when we're talking about, Microsoft is trying to move away from this. Maybe they're going to spin off the Xbox division, this, that, and the other, and now they bought another game company.
But let's be clear that none of that has been. All of that has been explicitly denied by Microsoft management. True. That's swirling around in the rumor sphere. What even in Satya's mission statement, the mobile first to be the devices
cloud first, mobile first.
We are the productivity company for the mobile first, cloud first world, right, or whatever. Even within that, they called out Xbox talking about creating dual users. Right? So you use Microsoft at home in gaming, and you use home in gaming and music and stuff, and use them at work, and that Microsoft is in all of your life. And they recognize gaming as that, right? So I think, if anything, this should call out those who say Microsoft's trying to spin off its gaming division, or isn't interested in its gaming division, when you drop $2.5 billion on something. Also, all of that money was in offshore accounts, and so they didn't have to repatriate that money and pay U.S. taxes on it.
Okay, so that was actually a good deal for them.
So it was European money spent on
future,
it was European money spent on a European company, so they didn't have to pay U.S. taxes on that. So there's some financial trickery involved in that. I'm not saying like dirty dealings. It's just
happens.
It just
sometimes.
happens sometimes.
Microsoft is trying to buy the loyalty of the 9-year-old demographic here.
I mean,
we are going to make you Microsoft customers early.
That's not it.
It's not a bad
I realize you're pitching that as a straw man, but that's not necessarily that far off the mark of at least a potential theory here. We're attached to Microsoft because we grew up with it.
Right.
But in a mobile-first, cloud-first world, and Windows Phone constitutes 5% of the market at best, and Windows isn't even being used in schools consistently now.
Right.
Books, Apple iPads. I mean,
Right, Chromebooks, Apple iPads.
And
This
kids
is
are
the way
so,
to-
like, for the most part, attached to their mobile devices, which is generally going to be an iDevice or an Android device.
And these are, as Jimmy has been demonstrating, it's available for those Minecraft is available for those platforms, but best
Yeah.
on the but
I've got Minecraft on my Nexus 5.
but most people are playing it on the PC. Like the PC is the main life.
Well, it's
for
also
this
available
place.
for Xbox
For all-
One
and PS4
and PS4
and
I'm probably gonna buy
Xbox
it for
360.
PS4.
So it's available a lot of places. This could be a youth play. The other theory I have heard thrown out there is they are trying to invest in their games divisions for when they spin it off.
Those people won't give up.
They won't give up.
I don't buy that though. You don't drop $2.5 billion. That seems like, first off, $2.5 billion seems like too much money for this.
Yeah, I don't deny that.
Unless they are trying to take that user base and turn it into something else. And I don't know how they're going to be able to do that.
Well, but I feel like people have spent, not quite so much, but, comparable amounts of money on significantly less stable gaming-related things. Like,
Yeah, but so
Like Zynga.
exactly. That's,
So I'm just not sure. This has got to be more like Apple and Beats, where they don't really think they're going to make the money back. This is more about buying a name, because like Destiny is considered a big deal because it made its money back. They invested $500 million, and in a day they made back $500 million.
I think it's due to the astronaut ice cream.
Sure, yeah, yuck.
In general, yep.
But I don't, Destiny may end up making $1 billion, but that's huge money for a game, right? $1 billion is huge for any entertainment property. And when your company is one entertainment property, one Marvel movie makes $1 billion. One huge game like GTA, BioShock, Destiny maybe makes $1 billion through the course of its life. I'm not looking at Mojang's financials, but I don't think they've made $2.5 billion.
Well, we can figure this out. So if they've had 50 million downloads, what? $10 a piece?
I don't know.
They're an indie
The
developer.
pricing's different on different platforms.
It was $6 on my phone,
Right, but yeah.
and that counts as a download. So they're not there.
But for most people, you only have to buy it once, and then they'll let you use it on all platforms.
Right.
So
And
it's hard to say, but I don't think it's. I'm pretty sure they haven't made $2.5 billion in revenue, so that does make me wonder what on earth Microsoft's doing. I really don't have an answer to this.
So I think that maybe a Minecraft 2. I think that the answer to the biggest thing that we're going to see from this is, and I'm surprised you didn't go there with this, is that Microsoft is just going to leverage their Azure cloud services in order to back up Minecraft as an idea and be able to expand it to even larger kind of worlds and things than it is right now, because
it's
they
a
have the server
procedurally based
infrastructure to do it.
it is a procedurally based server game. So on that level, yeah, they have the tech. This fits right into their technology. You stick it up on Azure, run it, side by side with Windows Live, with Xbox
just go
Live,
for it.
and you use
in
Xbox.
case you were curious, Mojang is Swedish for gadget.
Yep.
And their
Oh,
revenue, 2.069 billion as
In-
of 2013.
Okay, never mind. Okay, so then I guess they really are making a lot of money on Minecraft.
Well, it's
Jeez.
revenue, it's not profit.
Right.
Right, but that's more money than I would have guessed.
Yeah, no. it's
Because
true.
again, Destiny has not made a profit yet. All they've made is revenue.
No, that's also true.
Okay, so anytime a game makes revenue, and think about development costs are not that high for this. This is an 8-bit style graphic game that Notch.
With a loose structure and
Right.
its own set of rules, and you just go for it.
Right. So maybe this is just purely it's going to keep making money, and they'll think they'll make their money back.
Or I doubt they think they're going to make their money back. They have to be thinking something else on it.
Sure. So someone else who really needs to make their money back is Amazon.
Yes, so while most of the device focus this week has been on Apple, they're actually not the only ones with new products coming our way. So Apple's alphabetical neighbor, Amazon, I couldn't think of an A word for
That's
neighbor.
good.
Anyway, alphabetical associate.
Approximate.
They announced several additions to the Kindle line on Wednesday, which of course you all know has me way more excited than phones, because me and phones, it's just not a thing. Not that I don't love my phone. So bear with me because there are a lot of devices on this list, and I'll try to hit a few highlights and then leave some room for us to discuss. But quick rundown of what we have to look forward to. So first up, there's the Kindle Fire HD 6 and Kindle Fire HD 7, which, as you probably have guessed, are 6 and 7-inch versions of the Fire HD. So just different size, same device, basically. They come in a variety of colors, always exciting. They run on quad-core processors, and they feature the, I think it's FireOS 4.0 at this point.
Sure.
Sangria is the name, which is just lovely.
Sounds delicious.
Yeah, sounds delicious. You have to have, it goes with the nice bright phone, or not phone, tablet colors. And of course that's running on top of Android's KitKat. The standard version of our new Fire HDs, or Fires HD, I'm not quite sure how you make that plural.
Fire HDs. It is the Kindle Fire HD. So Fire HDs.
Yeah, but see, anyway, we're not going to
Anyway,
get into grammar right now.
Not like
We're
the
leaving the
Chinese
grammar
grammar.
alone. Anyway, as far as pricing, we're looking at $99 for the Fire HD 6 and $139 for the 7. Unless you are looking into the ones that are being marketed specifically for your kids.
Yeah, these are actually
So,
interesting.
yeah, this is kind of one of the more exciting of the announcements. So Amazon is offering a kids edition for both tablets at $149 for the 6 and $189 for the 7. And the kids edition comes with a special, kid proofing case. Basically, it looks kind of fun and again, more bright colors. It comes with a year of Kindle Free Time Unlimited, which is basically, any kind of streaming you could want: games, movies, TV shows, ebooks, music, all with, kid-friendly titles available. And then what could be quite handy, basically child-proofing replacement policy. So anytime you break your phone I keep saying phone, too much phone talk.
Too much iPhone talk. It's
Yes.
really just invading.
So anytime you break your Fire HD tablet, within 2 years, they just give you a new one, which, again, very handy when we're talking about a kid-marketed device.
Very useful for the kid marketing.
Yes. And in general, the reviews seem to be saying that the device is durable as is, so that might not necessarily be a concern, but...
Well, it looks like a Lumia phone, honestly.
Yeah.
That's kind of... They got the same kind of colors going. It's the same kind of design language from the front. It has that little, bezeling on the back like the Fire HDs have had for a while. Mm-hmm. The last generation.
Yeah, I mean, they're definitely a little on the chunky side, but yeah, again, if you're thinking about something for your kid, that may be better. So,
but there are also a bunch of ebooks, right?
right. So that's again through that Kindle Free Time Unlimited. I'm not remembering exact numbers, but again, you're looking at in the thousands of options for ebooks and all that, and you get a year subscription along with it's basically bundled in with your kids edition purchase. So
Yeah, and that's not nothing.
right, that in and of itself is a pretty huge value proposition.
Probably worth $50.
No, and you get, the kind of hardcore case for it that, the reviewers that I've, been looking at, reading and listening to says, it looks like the device isn't unsturdy to begin with, and you put a hardcore case on it, and let your 2-year-old beat it up. It's going to be fine. This, to me, the kids play here is the most is one of the more interesting things. That and the voyage.
Yes.
Le voyage.
Which is yet to come.
Which is yet to come.
Press on, Sydney.
There's so much more, so many more Kindles. Okay, two less interesting, less complicated,
Yeah, way less
less.
than
Yeah. Anyway, so the new entry level Kindle, which is going to cost you $79. The biggest new feature there is that it does in fact have a touch screen. So bye buttons, no more buttons.
This is what it replaces.
The
This
dead
one's
Kindle?
my always dead prop Kindle.
I don't have mine on hand.
Yeah, but
Mine
you
is
use yours.
old school, and I still love it. So yep, touchscreen on your base low end Kindle. It's faster, has twice the built-in memory of its predecessor, so some improvements there definitely.
Why not?
Just cause. Amazon also announced the Fire HD X 8.9, which again, visually the same as the previous version, but improvements to internals, faster processor, better sound, and some new nifty accessories, a better case for it, as well as a keyboard accessory. So they're kind of making a productivity push with that one to, I guess, to compete a little bit more with some of the other.
Microsoft sells OneDrive, offers OneDrive for this platform.
So that's again
Yeah.
one of those that people will say, oh, it looks the same, so it's not an improvement, but definitely
I hate those people.
It got
Trey's favorite people.
I hate those people.
And then finally, to bring us around to the other one that we are
Actually interested in.
more excited about,
this is what I'm actually interested in.
and in a total departure from any remotely logical
It makes no
fire-related naming convention, the Kindle Voyage. Because
It's a departure.
Voyages and fire and
Voyage de la Lune.
yeah, I got nothing. So the Voyage is their new kind of top-of-the-line fancy schmancy e-reader, which will set you back $199. It is thinner than the Paperwhite, which is pretty impressive. And then it features a screen that can handle up to 300 pixels per inch.
And also has a glass front to it.
I was getting
Oh,
there.
okay. Well,
The screen is really like the big deal here. So it has an ambient light sensor. I think this is one of the coolest things ever. So the theory behind that is that it automatically adjusts your screen brightness. So if you're
e-reader.
at the beach, it knows, okay, we need to adjust for bright light.
jams.
If you're reading before you go to bed, it will adjust to that, and it does it theoretically gradually. So as your eyes adjust, your screen also adjusts. Now, I don't know. Obviously,
Interesting.
it's probably not as scientifically wonderful as all that, but definitely a really cool feature, I think. And as Trey said, it's a touchscreen, glass screen, but the screen has been kind of etched in a special way in order to try to reduce glare and all that, even though it is a glass screen. And then it has what, according to several reviewers, is a very nice magnesium back, so it's just purty.
it also has
Looks fancy, feels fancy.
has
is
the
kind of
thing where
idea.
you can change
It has the
pages
pressure
by
sensors.
squeezing the edges.
Right.
Which is awesome.
Yeah. So, well,
And it's
I
my
think we
favorite
can
feature
see
of the Nook,
which
really.
is our favorite new Kindle here. I think is not too secretive. We're pretty obvious about it.
Well, I mean, the one I am most excited about is the kids' version of the Kindle Fire HD.
That's probably the most actually newsworthy
Well,
one.
I
In
mean,
the sense that there have been other tablets that are doing that same thing with Android and, have the really chunky kind of construction and case, but they never really got a big uptick. And I think and they're right kind of in this price range. So I think Amazon's really smart to cannibalize those sales, and they know that the Kindle Fires are already seen as a cheap device.
Right.
Well, and I feel like the way that it's a total package. It's not just the device. There's the device, and then there's the case,
And the
then
services,
Here are the
which is
services that go
Amazon's
along
thing.
with it. As far as your streaming stuff, and also, which is not negligible. Your replacement options.
The Dropkick warranty.
Right.
And let's think about this in what is this kids ecosystem. So right now
Right.
there are two main devices in the kid market. There is the Nintendo 3D or 2DS, which this doesn't replace, and the iPod Touch, which this is
does.
better than. Right? So this is
And cheaper.
This is
That's what I was
better
gonna
and
say. What's
cheaper.
I don't know off the top of my head pricing
Better?
for the
Bigger screen.
The
iPod
touch starts at
Touch.
$200.
okay.
Bigger screen. It comes with the Dropkick case rather than a glass front. And that 2-year warranty and a year access to the service and the case. Like, this is,
Smart.
this
Really
is
good
really
Christmas
smart.
present, y'all.
If I had a 4-year-old, 5-year-old, up to like an 12-year-old, 13-year-old who might be insulted by the kitty case, this is sold. Really easy decision. Almost in that impulse buy, certainly in that Christmas or birthday present range. They have enough games to keep your kid interested. I mean, this is, yeah. I get that the Voyage, I'm really intrigued by the Voyage.
I'm going to talk
It's
about
just
the
got
Voyage. when we're
cool
done
tech
with this.
stuff.
But I don't. Let's not underplay the Fire HD Kids Edition. I think this is. A lot of the tech press doesn't have children. Some of the tech press doesn't have children, but the ones that do are like. So, like, Jason Howell on Tech News Today was like, yeah, no, this is great. Because he has, like, 2 kids under 5, and he's like, no, this is really great. Anyone who's been around children in technology or was a child with technology, to me, you can't help but look at this and go, yeah, they're really thinking about the
I
needs.
need this.
And it's not. The incremental price increase isn't that bad.
No.
You get $50 worth of value here. And again, Amazon, like Google, makes it up in the services, kind of turning you into the product, but not nearly
Getting
the
you
same
hooked.
degree. They get you hooked into their content
Different.
ecosystem.
It's a content thing.
It's a
not
content thing. And so that's fine. Charge me for the things I'm going to use anyways. But that for $50 more, that in most places that case would be $50, and certainly
true.
that warranty would be $50. So you're getting quite a bit of value for your money here. Not to mention a year of that service, and if you like it, you'll subscribe to it, and that's what they're hoping. But that's fine if it's actually introducing your kid to these, a safe world of content. That's important.
Well, okay, so yeah, definitely the kids edition and the Fire HDs are really interesting. But I'd like to talk about the
Sure, it's not like
$200 ebook.
It's not like I don't think the Voyage is interesting.
I
It's the
think
other
it's,
things I don't think is interesting. The HDX and the
Yeah.
HD.
yeah, forget this. So the Voyage is fascinating because here this thing is. It is $200.
Yeah.
It is $80 more than the Paperwhite.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
really,
It's pretty.
It is.
I mean,
yeah.
it's not plastic, it's magnesium.
And it's magnesium and glass.
It's magnesium and glass. It's got the pressure sensitive. So that's the thing for me that's the most interesting. It's got the pressure sensitive stuff. And the ambient light sensor, that stuff, yeah, that's interesting, but I probably wouldn't use it anyways, so whatever.
Yeah, you do have the option of adjusting that stuff manually, obviously.
Bless you.
Thank you. But how big of a kind of, what is Amazon going for with this?
Yeah, that's a little...
I think they know something we don't. Let's be clear.
No, well,
It's the... I don't know.
I think
It's the middle-aged lady market.
the people who make e-ink came out with a new technology and they integrated it. And I think this price will come down with time. And that may
Like
be
all Amazon products.
like all Amazon products. And that may be part of it.
I think it's probably worth $200.
I
For the right user, it's worth $200.
yeah, but it's $200 for a standalone device. I mean, we're back to the standalone device argument. It is $200 for a standalone device. Is it the best e-reader out there? Absolutely.
Hands down.
Hands
no
down.
question.
For right now, I mean, probably there will be a Nook that looks a lot like this because again, it's going to
I
be
hope so.
based on that same 300 PPI technology.
Let's be clear. If they release a Nook that looks like this, I'm buying it.
Sure, I'm really tempted by the Kindle Voyage for reasons that make no sense. I won't use it. It'll sit dead in my studio like my current Kindle, which
Like,
I'm
I
not.
have-
It's
I
not
have
that
two
I'm
Nooks that die.
right. Like
routinely.
it's not that I'm not using this because I don't like it. It's because, well, my current book you can't really read on it because you have to read NSA documents that show up as images. But it's just I barely have space in my life for all the multi-purpose devices that I have, just laying around everywhere. Now, again, I'm a tech journalist, and so it's a little different. But I'm a dyslexic tech journalist,
even
so I don't
mom
read
has
for fun.
an iPad, so
Right, and my mother too reads. If you want to talk about the middle-aged lady market,
and she just reads books.
right. I mean, the middle-aged lady either is reading books, or my mother has
By
an
which
iPad.
we don't mean the phone case.
Right. Which, if I had to give up mine today, it's one of the downsides of new iPhones is there just isn't a book immediately for it, and I don't even want to know what a book for an iPhone 6 Plus
It would
looks like.
not fit
Looks
in your
ridiculous.
pocket.
Well, it would not fit in my pocket. So I don't want to belabor this point. I love it. I just don't know who's going to buy it.
I love it, and I'm glad it exists. That's where I'm going with that.
Yeah, but that's how I felt about the Kindle DX too.
Yeah, but Amazon is just that type of company. Whatever, man. Someone's gonna buy it.
But even if they don't, who cares? Because remember,
It's a flagship device to drive the Kindle brand.
maybe, but also Bezos runs basically has Amazon operated making almost no money. They take in a lot of revenue, but then it all gets spent on stuff.
It's the Walmart approach.
Yeah, very
You
little
move
profit.
so much product that you can have tight margins as long as you have an awesome supply chain.
Well, no, also, he just invests back most of the money back into the company, into things like Kindles and Amazon Web Services. I mean, Amazon Web Services exists because they built excess capacity. And they're like, what are we going to do it? What if we start hosting half the internet on it? Okay. Like, that's the kind of thing that Amazon does. Prime, well, it keeps people in the Amazon ecosystem. Jeff, it's a boondoggle. I don't care. Read the Everything Store, which is the biography, the corporate biography of Amazon, which actually made them kind of mad. Although I don't think it's all that negative. It does make Jeff Bezos sound like a jerk, and I think he is. But read it, and maybe this will make a little more sense. I mean, there are some people in my life who I think I will gift them a Kindle Voyage, because I think a premium. This is essentially something we haven't had in a long time, which is a truly premium e-reader. It's the way the Kindle with 3G used to be.
And you
the
can get this with 3G too. It's important to note.
You can, and that
For
that always
$260,
Yeah, it's expensive, but-
$270.
in for a penny, in for a pound. That has always made the most sense. It's free 3G forever for what you need it for. It's pretty cool. So speaking of
The
pretty,
interwebs.
of pretty cool, we have an ally. In what should have been an obvious statement from the beginning, Tom Wheeler, FCC chairman, showed some sense. In testimony before Congress, he clearly stated that 4 megabits per second is not enough for modern broadband, and the standard for broadband needs to be up to 10 megabits per second. Yes.
Excellent.
Fantastic.
The debate is surrounding the definition of broadband that can receive government money under the Universal Service Fund, which is actually something that comes out of all of your internet bills, aimed at getting broadband everywhere, like rural areas. Last week, AT&T and Verizon stated that 4 megabits per second would be perfectly fine for consumers. They're fine with it.
Bastards.
And so Wheeler struck back,
Hurts.
citing the fact that many households have multiple devices, and that the
You
minimum
don't say.
and that the minimum for good video streaming, which is a lot of what web traffic is more like 5 megabits per second, and that's only for one device. Also, having these kind of really lax definitions of broadband creates an urban-rural digital divide. Like actual sensible points stated directly. And as one of the Americans who is affected by this in
Your country home.
in my country home, where I'm lucky if I see anywhere near 4 megabits per second down, which I don't, I couldn't agree more with him. To quote Wheeler,
No more dubstep baseball.
right? But yeah, so one of the things that our lovely rural broadband, if 1 megabit per second it can even be called broadband, is MLB.TV periodically just becomes watching baseball as a dubstep music video, where like it goes a little bit and then repeats and cycles back and then jumps. It's like It's great. It's a great way to watch
Oh,
baseball.
3 runs were scored.
3 runs were scored. We saw the windup 4 times. We then missed the hit and the running. Great. So to quote Wheeler, anyways, when 60% of internet traffic at prime time is video, and it takes 4 or 5 megabits per second to deliver video, a 4 megabit per second connection isn't exactly what's necessary in the 21st century. And when you have half a dozen different devices, wireless and other connected devices in a home, that are all going against the bandwidth, it's not enough. What we are saying is we can't make the mistake of spending the people's money, which is what universal service is, to continue to subsidize something that is subpar.
Do you hear
Drop the mic.
people
Drop the mic.
sing?
Now let's remember, this is
Singing
Wheeler.
the song of angry men.
I am always angry. This is Wheeler, who came out of the telecom industry, so he's really good at saying things that make us go, hell yeah! And then, are they going to get classified under Title II? What's going to happen? What is this going to look like? Who's going to win? Now, this does not mean we've won, but it is nice that he at least pays lip service to what makes bloody sense.
All I have to say is yes, I agree.
Yeah.
Obviously, 4 megabit per second internet as broadband is laughable.
It's laughable in this day and age. Like, as Tom Merritt on
megabit per second and
Daily Tech News Show pointed out, like, that made a lot of sense in 1999 when the regulation was written. But that was some time ago. It was 15 years ago.
It's been a while.
It's been a while. Like, when I was in middle school,
has come and gone.
yeah, that would have been great because, you know, I was lucky if I could get like a 300 kilobit per second download for Napster, which is what mattered when I was in 7th grade. When this was written.
I just remember the line by line loading of like, you know,
Images.
images that I load instantaneously now, or you just watch like one line of pixels load.
Well, some of that is
The
also
next line of pixels
how
load.
non-AGP graphics cards work. That is some of that was your graphics card, some of that was your internet. How the data came in was your internet, but how it was doing that painting thing is a non-AGP graphics card. This is really interesting, I promise you. It's
Fascinating.
yeah, because that's back when there wasn't a dedicated port that was higher speed on a PCI board for graphics. That was before AGP. So you were just using like a normal PCI port, and it just wasn't fast enough. And so then they developed AGP, which has had several other iterations subsequently to really speed up graphics performance straight to the... This is really interesting stuff.
Good talk.
Nerd.
Is the problem with your graphics accelerator?
Yes, thank you. That's much better.
So... let's just jump to this.
Onwards into the breach.
Last call, that Space Edition.
Space, a final frontier.
America is returning to space.
Space! Space!
According to a press release from NASA this week, the United States will end its sole reliance on Russia for transportation to
Our
the
good
International
friends.
Space Station.
Our partners in peace.
Yes. By 2017, using what it has called its Commercial Crew Transportation Capability, or CC lowercase t CCAP, or CCT cap.
Gotta work on
Better
that one.
acronym. Get on it. You made Colbert work. So the first companies selected to participate are Boeing and SpaceX, both American companies. Quote, this is a quote from the NASA press release. I just copied it in its entirety because it was perfect. Quote, the contracts include at least one crewed flight test per company with at least one NASA astronaut aboard to verify the fully integrated rocket and spacecraft system can launch, maneuver in orbit, and dock into the space station, as well as validate all its systems perform as expected. Once each company's test program has been completed successfully and its system achieves NASA certification, each contractor will conduct at least 2 and as many as 6 crewed missions to the space station. These spacecrafts will also serve as lifeboat for
Finally.
astronauts aboard the space station. End quote.
Yeah.
So on a scale from 1 to 6 plus, how excited are we to kick the Ruskies to the curb?
I do
Voyage.
I do want to point out some actual facts that we need that are relevant here. Boeing, the contract for Boeing is worth $4.2 billion, which is roughly 1/4 of a WhatsApp. And the SpaceX contract is worth $2.6 billion, which is roughly one Minecraft. My comment was, I smell a tech bubble where rocket science is cheaper than social networks.
What is wrong with the world?
I mean, I understand that, like,
we could send a man to the International Space Station for $4.2 billion, apparently. Actually, we can send a crew of men.
For cheaper than kids building internet blocks.
Fantastic.
Let's just, like,
On that bombshell.
we really need to get out of here.
Let's do it.
Thank you so much for joining us in this extended edition of Text Last Call. If you have any feedback for this show, podcast at textlastcall.com, pinterest.com/textlastcall, facebook.com/textlastcall, or at textlastcall on the Twitters. However you find us, we'll be seeing you on the interwebs.
And in space.
Space.
So it's capsules, not shuttles. That's important too. Kind of look like big Apollo capsules,
And it's more modern than Soyuz.
which was developed around the same time as the Apollo capsules.
Yeah.
Yes.
Again, like with things that are less likely to fall apart in the vacuum of space, I'm totally in favor of that.
So
Look,
here's
their
this.
space station crashed and burned. We stopped sending astronauts to it like 10 years before they did.
Also,
Yeah.
any time that Elon Musk gets to get in front of the press and say crazy stuff is always good.
Almost as good as the dish.
He is Iron Man.
Not the dish CEO, Elon Musk.